I think the best thing that people said to me was, I don't know what to say. And that for me was like the most honest thing, because then I would sometimes say, I don't either. But I appreciate that you at least can say, I don't know. This thing is so big and sucky. I don't know what to do for you.
Welcome back to another episode of The Day After. On today's episode, we sit down with Erin, who shares what it was like to lose her husband suddenly and become a solo parent to their 2 children. Erin opens up about what her life has been like since he passed, about dating, and the things that she's run into since losing him. And while I have you, go ahead, rate and review the show. It goes a long way to getting our guest stories heard and helping others. So go ahead, grab your raw milk, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
It'll be 3.5 years this Sunday on the 14th on Mother's Day. And so November 14th, the week before we were in Las Vegas together, Paul had a work conference, and about a month before he said, I think you should come to Vegas with me. It'd be fun. And it was not a place that I ever really wanted to visit. It just wasn't my thing. I'm not into gambling, but I am into live entertainment and Broadway and all that stuff. So he promised me a couple good shows and that we would go hiking and we'd rent a car. We wouldn't just walk the strip. And so I went, and it was Veterans Day weekend. So like we had like an extra day or two off from school and work. So we went down, I think on a Thursday, or not down, but out on a Thursday. And it was great. We had a great time. A friend of mine from here that I've known since I was a kid had opened up a restaurant there, and we went and visited his place the last night. And then we went and gambled a little bit. We took out a couple $100 and gambled just the slot machines. Paul won $300, and he was all pumped, and they gave him $300 bills, and he was super disappointed. He thought he was going to have a big stack of money. And we went back to the room, and he made me take a video of him rolling around in his money. So he put the $300 bills on the bed, and I have this video of him. And he's like, it feels so good. And the next morning, so I had a flight out of there at like 6 a.m. or something. I had to be at the airport really early. So he walked me out to the rental, and his conference was going to start later that afternoon. And I, drove away to the airport. I rolled down the window. We yelled out, I love you. He said, I love you too. And that was the last time that I heard his voice. That was the last thing we said to each other. Texted a lot from the airport. I said it was a real interesting crew waiting at security and, to go through all that. And then it was a snowstorm at home. So I got home. I let him know that I got home. We texted. He said he was at the Irish pub waiting for the welcome dinner, and that he missed me and it was better when I was there. And then I told him I was home, and I sent him a selfie with the kids and texted me, tell the kids I love them. I'm going to head off to dinner shortly. And that was the last message I got from him. So damn. I didn't think anything of it, because when he got into work mode, it was work mode, and there was a time difference. Mm-hmm. So I figured I would wake up in the morning to a message from him. And instead, I woke up to a voicemail from a hospital in Las Vegas that Paul had been admitted, and here's the number to contact and ask for so-and-so at the nurse's station. And no real details. I think they may have said that he collapsed, but they didn't really give any details. So I called, and she still didn't give me a lot of details, just that they were going to be going in for surgery, and they weren't sure what had happened at that point. And I said, I just got home. Should I be booking another flight? Should I be coming back there? I
Right.
said, can you tell me? I have 2 little kids, and I literally just got home last night. And she said, yes, you should come. And
Mm.
so I quickly called my mother. The kids weren't even up yet, and I had to get them on the bus for school. My parents live about a half an hour drive. It felt like they were at my door in 10 minutes, but my dad just took over with the kids and took them to the bus, gave them breakfast. My mom got on the laptop and started looking for a flight. And then my aunt actually traveled with me back to Vegas. She's a nurse practitioner and stroke coordinator. The way I was describing the video or the voicemail to her, she said it almost sounded like a stroke, and she thought she would be helpful to come along, and that my parents would be better to stay with my kids. So we quickly got on a plane. We communicated with the hospital a little bit during that time, and they were going in for surgery, and they kept calling me asking for permission for things. And I said, what blanket statement can I give you to just do whatever you need to do? I'm not sure what else, I'm going to be on a plane soon for hours, and you're not going to be able to reach me.
Right.
So my aunt kind of helped me with that. And then even that, like on the flight there, she was preparing me, again, thinking it was like a stroke. And she said, you may be here for a while. You may have to drive home with him. He may not be able to fly. He might be in a wheelchair. Like all of the things she was kind of thinking. She was trying to prepare me for that. So that in itself was really scary to think about. But then when we arrived at the hospital, it was a very small hospital just outside of where the strip is. And I saw who I thought was him coming by on a bed, like on a hospital bed going to a room. And I heard one girl say to the other, I think that's his wife. And so I said, can I say hi quick? And so he was out of it. He wasn't alert at all. But I just, gave him a kiss on the forehead, and they said, we're bringing him to a room. The doctor will be right out to talk to you. So the doctor came out, and one of the first things he said was, people don't survive this.
What?
And I didn't even know what this was. And I'm so glad that my aunt was there, because she stopped him and said, we don't know what's happened yet. And she has 2 little kids at home, and we just got off a plane with no information. So then he backed up. I think a lot of surgeons that are that brilliant in their mind lack in bedside manner. They often are not real good at tactfully talking. They're great at their skills, but it was terrible.
Yeah.
So he told us that Paul had an aneurysm that ruptured, and it was, I believe he said, about the size of a golf ball. And he said people just don't survive when they're that large. They went in for surgery because he otherwise appeared so young and healthy. They wanted to at least try. And I forgot the numbers that they used, but it was something ridiculous. Like, typically they can stop the bleeding with, 12, whatever they were, the stents or whatever they used to do that. And they used like 40 something, and it was still like they couldn't stop what was just bleeding out. So basically, I hate this term, but basically he was brain dead is what they said. He was non-responsive to pain, any neurological stimulation. Nothing, he wasn't responding to anything. No light stimulation, nothing. So he was really living on the machines. And then his parents were on their way. So it's all kind of a blur. the whole timeline of the
Mm-hmm.
hospital, except that it took us some time, I guess, to really be ready to just disconnect him, even though we knew, we needed to just be with him. I couldn't just like walk away. And I also wanted to wait for a priest. That was important to me. And so we sat around his bed for what felt like a really long time. I know it was overnight because the priest wasn't coming till the next morning. We had a nurse named Faith who was wonderful, and she was really little, really petite. And when she came in and said, "I'm Faith, I'm going to be your nurse," I said, "Oh, I really need a little Faith." And I like gave her this big hug. But she took really good care of us. And it's funny because when the anniversary gets close, I always try to really remember the details of the days leading up to that, the good and the bad, the great vacation we had that I don't know what pushed me to say, okay, I'll go to Vegas. But I always think, what if I didn't? What if I didn't go? Like I think about that all the time. And the people that were in the room, my aunt and Paul's mom and dad, I think it was a blur for all of us, but my aunt said, like, she'll never forget the words that I said to Paul. I felt like nobody else was there, even though they were. I felt like it was just he and I, and I was just in complete shock. I really didn't even know what to do first. I couldn't. My phone was dinging with text messages from random friends. How was your trip? Like nobody even knew I was back there. There was this group thread of some friends I used to work with, and they're sending like goofy emojis. And finally I had to text my one friend, and I just said, "Can you I silenced the thread, but I just said, can you let everybody know that I can't, this is where I am." And so it really still is kind of foggy. I remember combing his hair because he always liked his hair to look tidy. And I thought, oh, if he could see his hair right now, he'd be horrified. And so my aunt pulled out a little travel comb, and I was combing his hair, and I put chapstick on his lips, and because they looked really dry and cracked, and just kind of stupid things. But I felt like I somehow needed to take care of him still, and
right.
And thank God for my aunt to ask the things and say the things that I didn't think to ask. But she, when we were ready to unhook him from things, and she said, "Can we get him all unhooked for a little bit, and can we give her the room? I think she wants to just get in there and hold him for a little while." And I did. Like, I wanted to just climb in bed and tell him it was okay to go. And I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. Like, it was just short of our 10-year wedding anniversary. And I just remember thinking, like, I didn't want him to worry. You have this, depending on what you believe, if you believe in heaven or whatever, but like, I really felt like he was there watching, even though he couldn't respond or let me know. I felt like he was there, and I needed to tell him that we were going to be okay. And I just kept thinking about my kids, and I was talking to him about the kids and what a good father he was. And then we left the hospital and went to a hotel for the night, and we ordered takeout, and we hadn't eaten in like 24 hours. Like, I think we were drinking coffee, and the nurse kept giving us little things.
When you left the hospital, was he off the machines at that point?
Yeah, yep. Oh, you know what happened was they came in. This was interesting, and I blocked this out, I think, for maybe a reason. I don't. They came in and gave me this big spiel about organ donating, and would I be interested in organ donating? And I thought, yeah, I'm sure he would. And I surprised that wasn't on his license or wherever that you mark that. Well, then they said it means we need to keep him on the machines for X number of days, and we need to get the proper surgeons, and it was basically then I would have to leave him or stay there for days.
Oh,
And so I really, really struggled with that. And that was another time when my aunt spoke up and said she wants to get home with her children. She needs closure. And she told me you're not doing anything wrong, because I thought, I've read so many wonderful stories about what that can do for people, but I couldn't leave him like that.
no way.
There's no way I could do that. I needed to see him take his last breath. I needed to be there and hold him while that happened. And
Absolutely.
they got really pushy about it. And that's why I was glad she was there to speak up for me. And she said, she's made her decision, and I'm going to ask you not to come back again with your paperwork. Like, we're done with this conversation. And so, and then she told me, not to feel guilty about that. But honestly, I always forget about that. Like, that was part of the delay, because she didn't really tell me that information until after I said, oh yeah, tell me more about that. How can we do that? And but yeah, so then I said goodbye to him, and his parents said goodbye. And the other thing that happened in the room was I kept wondering if he suffered, like how it happened. There was nobody that I knew that was with him when it happened. So my aunt actually made friends with the nurse at the nurse's station, and he let her take a picture of the scan that showed the MRI that they had taken, and she sent it to her neurologist boss, and he said, please tell Erin he felt nothing. It was just like instant, absolutely instant, no pain. Everything just shut down. With something that size, there was no. I wondered if he was scared, like I thought, did he look around and think something's happening? And who can I turn to? Again, in my mind, I thought, was it like a seizure? Was he alert? So that was one comforting thing, I guess, if you can call it that, was that he said it happened instantly. So yeah, we went to the hotel. We had to start talking about transporting his body and securing, we couldn't really book the funeral yet, but we did get in contact with the funeral home and explain what was happening, because unfortunately Paul was the third of 4 deaths in our family within a 12-month period.
Oh my goodness.
So
wow.
The May prior to COVID, we lost my dad's brother. He was fighting a blood leukemia, but lost that battle after a blood marrow transfusion. That happened in May, and then we lost my grandma in September, and then Paul in November, and then another close uncle in May to cancer. So from May to May, it was 4 losses. So we had a funeral home that we worked with,
It's like on speed dial.
Now, I'm curious, when you flew back out there, right? Like, which was probably the longest flight of your life.
Yeah.
Flying out, not knowing what's going on. You go through all of this, and then the planning starts, the funeral, trying to figure out, like, getting there, being with him during his last breath and all that stuff.
Yep.
In all of this chaos, did you contact the kids at all? Or did your parents just kind of let them know that things are just moving? And
I was in contact with my parents. I was really I didn't know what to tell the kids. I think what they said was that I can't remember if they said he was sick, and I needed to go take care of him. I didn't want to say like he fell. I didn't want them to visualize things for the rest of their lives that, I couldn't undo. So they knew that I went to be with him and that he was sick, I think.
How old were they at the time?
They are almost 12 and 10 and a half now. So they were 6 and 7, I think. And I decided, so they went to school. So when we called my family, I think we texted the family thread. I think I spoke with my mother. My mother was on a call. We did we have a very close family friend who's a priest, and he basically did last rites over on speakerphone, and we had sort of phones all lined up. And that was really special. And then when it happened, I told my mother, and then she told the rest of the family, and it was during the night here. So I said, I need them to just go to school. I'll be home tonight, later tonight, but I need them to go to school, and I think that's the best thing. So they had to, my dad and my brother, take them to the bus stop, knowing that their father just died and not letting on to them. And it's like you just go into this survival mode, especially with kids, I'm sure you can relate to that. And I think my neighbor was at the bus stop that would see me every day at the bus stop. And she said to my brother, "Where's Erin? I thought she just got back yesterday from her trip." And my brother told her what happened. And they just cried. And my brother says, that was the first time that I think that he really could cry about it, because they were just putting on this front for the kids. So they came home and got home at the airport. I want to say there was at least 50 family members waiting for us at the bottom of the escalator.
Oh my gosh.
Got there. My family's pretty amazing and massive. And Paul's family is equally as amazing, although much smaller. And there was representation from both, and bags of food to go home. Everyone just wanted to hug us, they just wanted to be there. So I drove, Paul's parents' friend drove them home. My mother drove me home, and I remember stopping in the almost home, and she pulled over because I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure how I'm going to go home without him and tell the kids, So she said, "How would you like it to look? Dad and Brendan are there, and we could go upstairs and leave you down with the kids, and you could call us when you need us." And I said, "Yeah, that probably would work." Well, that didn't even happen. We pulled in the garage, and the kids both came running out into the garage and opened the door. And, one opened the front door and climbed into my lap. The other one opened the sliding door and looked and saw that there's no Paul. They said, "Where's Daddy?" And I said, "Well, Daddy was very sick when I got there, and they weren't able to save him," I think is what I said. And I can't remember which kid. One of them said no and started running down the driveway.
Oh gosh.
And then came back, or my mother might have gone after him. Like I said, some of these details, I feel like I can't remember exactly how it went.
Yeah, I totally relate to that.
Yeah, I can't even imagine.
We came in through the garage. I got as far as the kitchen island, and we just all held on to each other and wept. And then my dad and my brother came in, and my mother, and we all just cried, and eventually ended up on the couch crying. And but the kids and I all slept in my bed that night and just cried. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, not I really hadn't started missing him yet. Like I was
Yeah.
so focused on the kids. I was so focused on how are they going to survive this kind of loss, and no preparation for it. He was a marathon runner and very, very healthy. He just did it. He was very smart. He had an incredible work ethic, worked really hard, but I always tell people he also played really hard. He loved ski trips and golf excursions and running marathons and training, and he loved Marvel and superheroes and Star Wars, and he was like a big kid, but he was really brilliant too, and he worked very hard to provide for us. And we had always talked about retiring early and traveling, and it was just such a shock. I can't even.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally out of nowhere. How old was he when he passed?
He was 45.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
45.
You had to go right into like that planning mode. Like you were planning a funeral before you even got back to tell your kids about it.
Right. Because there's just different things now. You have his body in Nevada, and I don't know. I mean, I tell you, I'll never go to Vegas again. He couldn't pay me to go to Vegas. I got a big FU as I was taken off.
I have the same thing with California, though, because that's when my wife got diagnosed, but I'm forced to go back there because my company that I work for is out there. It's like every time I fly in, it's just like that like sensations, they all come back. And I actually just got back a couple of days ago from a trip. So your home, like everything goes, the funeral, that I imagine is a blur too. For me, it's like, I think everything kind of felt like one day, but it was probably like 2 months.
Yeah.
How do you then begin to start establishing your life with the kids? Like, did you keep them home from school? Did they stay with you in your room for a while? Like I had my kids,
Yep.
They basically just slept in my bed and I slept on the floor for a while.
We did do that. They stayed in my bed. I don't have a king size bed. I have a queen. So it was, the first night or two, we just couldn't let go of each other. And I didn't sleep much. I just sort of tried to nap when I could during the day. But then eventually I brought mattresses in. I had a mattress on the floor, and they would take turns sleeping with me. But we were all in my room for quite a while. It was a process over a few months of that.
Yeah, same here.
And I didn't give a shit. I needed them as much as they needed me. Because now I was sleeping in an empty bed, and I really needed to feel them next to me. I had a lot of fear that what if they have brain aneurysms? What if, how do I know that they're not at risk, because it can be hereditary? I did take them to a pediatric neurologist to be evaluated and checked, and I felt much better after that. But it was just as much for them as it was for me, and everyone kept telling me they're not going to sleep with you forever. You just do what you need to do. But it was in November. I think they went back to school right before Thanksgiving. So they were home maybe for like 10 days with me. And then we thought maybe going back for like 2 days and then having like 5 days off again would be a good way to ease back in. There were 2 other families who suddenly lost the father within about a year of Paul, also guys were in their mid 40s, sudden, and all at the same elementary school and in classes with my children, in the class with my children.
No.
Holy
fucking
smokes.
It, that's another thing where it's like, I don't want to say right place, right time, because it's wrong. It's the wrong place, the
Yeah.
wrong thing. You
Yeah.
don't want to be in that club, but it was kind of like what's in the water in Webster, you know, and
Yeah.
but also pretty remarkable that they had this kind of unspoken support in the classroom, you know, like
Yeah.
they had this
Right.
bond with other kids, and I became friends with these other widowed moms, you know, and it was crazy. But I remember coming home from Thanksgiving dinner, and that night I broke down like I hadn't yet, and it was weeks after.
Yeah, same here.
I was angry. I was sad. We had worked on this train table together. He had this train set that was an antique that was his grandfather's originally, I think. It was like from the 30s or something. And we rebuilt this whole town and everything together in our bonus room, like a spare room here. And I was sitting looking at it before bed. My mother was in the other room getting her pajamas on, and she was spending the night with me. And she came in, and I just felt like a little kid, like weeping in my mother's lap. And I don't remember crying like that until then, I think, because I was just so focused on my kids. It was like a block almost for me, you know? So it wasn't long after that I started thinking about, you know, wanting to see a therapist. But it took me a while to actually do it. And by the time I did, it was COVID. And so everything was over video, which was challenging, but it was really good. And, you know, back to the kids a little bit, like they were afraid to be away from me at all. You can't tell your kid nothing's going to happen. I'm going to be home. Why do you?
Yeah.
I can't say that anymore to my children. I know that most likely I'm going to be fine, but they will call me out on it if I say that. You know, you don't know that.
Yeah.
It has taken years. It has taken years for them to start being okay with sleepovers away from me.
What about for you?
Yeah.
How does it feel for you to move about the world, having this experience and that fear of what if something happens to you or to your kids?
I do struggle with that. I struggle with, you know, how it can all go in a blink of an eye. Like what I've really tried to do is flip that to not take anything for granted. And I know that that is such an overused statement, but I really try to live that. And I think it's made me more appreciative of the relationships I have. And it's such a hard thing to quantify or to put into words, but I feel like I can love more deeply. I can forgive easier. I can let things go. I mean, not everything. I'm human. I get mad. I get frustrated. I get, you know, I mean, I still yell at my kids, but it was such a shit show when the pandemic started because I needed people, and it was just the kids and I, and it was just a constant, it was day after day of yelling at each other and then crying it out together and then falling asleep, or all I kept thinking was, this is what they're going to remember. This is what their childhood's going to be like. And it's not. I mean, we got better, but
yeah,
we couldn't go be with our friends and family easily. And my therapist was like, you need adult interaction. You need to talk to people. And I set up a pop-up tent in my garage with blanket walls and a little space heater that looks like a fireplace. And I hung up lights, and it was 10 feet wide. And it was my COVID tent. And I would have people come over and drink wine with me or have coffee or whatever. And we could sit across from each other 10 feet apart without masks.
Yeah.
I'm curious to talk about the actual expression of grief that you had. What did that look like for you specifically? Like, how did your grief come out? Did you feel comfortable sharing that with others? Was there some different aspect of it where most of the time you're just home alone anyways with your kids?
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder like what that process of that first year looked like for you.
So I was a stay-home mom, which I still am. When my daughter was 4 is when I stayed home. So Paul had taken a job that required more international traveling. So I think there was part of me that kind of wished I had a place to go every day, to get up and leave, but I didn't. And so it was very hard. I became friends with some other widows, and that was, I think, a huge comfort to me. And I joined a couple groups on Facebook and made some relationships that I will probably have forever. But
oh, wow. That is different than the experience I had.
There's a lot of crazy stuff in those groups. I felt like it's kind of like online dating. You got to weed through a lot of crap to find the good stuff. Yeah. You know, there was some, but it also gave me a safe space to share with no judgment. You know, if I was angry or if I could say things and people weren't going to be like, oh, are you suicidal? Oh, are you,
exactly.
Somebody better call CPS because
that's right.
No, I was functioning just fine. My kids were cared for and healthy and sad as hell, but I was taking care of them, and I needed that release bad, because as much as I have so many wonderful friends and family, like I'm really blessed with great support, but nobody has lived through this, and
that's right.
Nobody can really understand how I'm feeling and how I can go from just fine 1 minute to, rocking on my floor sobbing another minute, and then, okay, gotta go make dinner, like gotta ship shape and or I gotta do this, take the kid to school, or someone's sick, or I don't know. I just I guess I tried really hard to provide those kinds of outlets for myself. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It was a safe space, and there were people where things very similar were in very similar situations, and just knowing that there are people out there experiencing it was a comfort, even though they might be on the other side of the world, or I don't know. I have a couple local widow friends too, and I hate that word. I know I keep saying it, but I hate the word widow. It sounds old. I don't know. It sounds makes me think of old people.
There was a Hot Young Widows Club that Nora McEllery started.
Oh yeah,
a while ago. It actually shut down. So I got to join it before it shut down, and there was supposed to be something similar, safe spaces, but it just wasn't effective for me. But I do agree with you, Liz. I needed, or I mean, still do.
Yep.
I'm only 2.5 years out, but for me, my grief it became private. So I think the journey of us, my wife and I, going through her cancer and then dying was maybe a little bit more public, and we shared and people talked, but my grief became very much my own, because like you said, when I say I just don't want to wake up in the morning, people are like, oh my gosh, you want to die. And I'm like, no,
Yes.
I just
Yes.
don't want to wake
Yep.
up. And how do you explain that to someone unless they've experienced it, you know?
I had very similar things where I would say things like, if I didn't have these kids, I don't know where I would be. If I didn't have these kids, I don't know if I would get out of bed. I wouldn't know how to put one foot in front of the other. I just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I ever, there was, you know, they talk about all the different phases of grief and the anger phase. And I'm not an angry person. And I thought, how can I get angry? I can't get angry at him. I can't, but I did get angry at certain things, like this wasn't how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
I also would get angry at some of the things people said, and they don't mean it, but you're so strong. I just, I want to punch people when they said that. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
I don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that's not what they meant. And I didn't punch anybody, but I really wanted to just be like,
For me, I found that you're so strong because I feel the same way. Or it's like, well, I can't believe it, or you're so resilient, or I couldn't do it. They're all the same vein.
Yes.
And I think there's, like you said, like people are well intentioned,
They are.
but I mean, that's also part of why we're doing this, is to say like, there are things in society that we do that aren't helpful.
Yep.
But I think a lot of times behind those words are, wow, I don't want to be in your shoes
Mm-hmm.
because that's just too much for me to handle. So I'm going to just try to distance myself with these words and give you some comfort, as opposed to the people who come into your life who are capable of just being like, this fucking sucks.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just sit here and feel this with
Yeah.
you. Because ultimately that's what we need.
Yes.
We just need somebody who is capable and willing to sit in it with us for as long as they can,
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that like people still need to have their boundaries and then they can go away. But that's the difference. The difference is like, I'm here. This sucks. There's nothing else said. I'm just here with you.
I remember saying to people too, certain friends, that would reach out, if you're up for it. Some of us are all like neighbors or whatever. We're getting together. We'd love to see you, or we're gonna have a game night, or we're gonna have a fire. Come on over. And I just kept saying no. I wasn't
Yeah.
up for it. But I remember saying to people, please don't stop asking, because one of these days I'm going to say yes. I'm not saying no because I don't want to spend time with you. I'm just, a lot of times and I don't know if you have this too, CJ, but like most of our friends are like married couples. So
Yes.
it's just not, it doesn't feel the same. It's not that I don't want to spend time with them,
Yeah.
but our relationship looks different now. And I don't want to go with a bunch of married couples and everyone's like, here comes Erin, poor Erin.
Yeah.
And I wonder how she's
Exactly.
doing. And you can just see it in their eyes. And I'm like, I'm fucking okay. I really am okay.
Right.
I'm doing okay right now. I got out of the house and put on real pants, and maybe just hand me a beer would be great. But
Yeah.
I think the best thing that people said to me was, I don't know what to say. And
Yeah.
that for me was like the most honest thing, because then I would sometimes say, I don't either. But I appreciate that you at least can say, I don't know. This thing is so big and sucky. I don't know what to do for you. Tell me, tell me what you can do. And people have come to me now and said, what was best for you? Because we've had all these other scenarios, like right in our neighborhood, in our community. And they said, what was best for you? And I said, just do things, don't ask.
Yes.
Because if people came to me and said, can I bring dinner? What can I do? I would have said nothing. We're okay.
Yeah.
But instead, someone just set up a meal train and meals just started showing up, and I froze things if I needed to. But people were at my house pretty constantly for the initial couple weeks. And so I could at least feed them. And it was actually Rose's birthday, 3 days after Paul died. So it was out, but when I came home, it was almost like the wake before the wake. everybody came to the house on her birthday. So she struggles with that because her birthday comes around and it's right before his anniversary comes, and then we're trying to prepare for her birthday. She didn't want to celebrate her birthday anymore. She wanted to do like her half birthday. I told her we could do whatever she wanted. I mean, it's better now, but like not only that, but then it was COVID. Like poor girl couldn't get a birthday party for years. And
it's a good point though. Like I just want to call out again too, is when the person who's going through that, who has lost a partner, is experiencing that, a no doesn't mean no, I don't want to be with you.
Yeah.
A no, like you said, is like, I'm just overwhelmed.
Right.
And I can't interact, or it just feels awkward. It feels different. I don't understand. Like I've maybe not as good, but sometimes have tried to communicate that. I mean, even to this day, like family parties, it's all just like, it's just so fucking hard for me because it's like, I'm just waiting for my wife to come through the door.
Right.
You know, like everything has changed, and I'm like, I feel like I'm the third wheel everywhere I go.
Yes.
You know, like I don't really have single friends. Like everybody's together and they have kids. So the nights that I want to socialize, I really don't have anybody to call.
Yes.
So yeah, I think that's definitely something that's really, really important to call out, that, you know, just keep asking, and no doesn't mean no, I don't want to be with you. Cause I think people do take offense to that of like, oh, well, I'm just trying to help, you know?
Right. Or they'll say like, well, I tried to call her. I tried to plan something. She doesn't want to be my friend. And it's like, no, you don't understand. And I sometimes like say, I hope you never understand what I'm feeling. Like, I hope, I don't wish this upon anyone.
Me either.
You know, he was my best friend in the world, and I did not see it coming when I fell for him. So he wouldn't mind me saying this, but he was a skinny, nerdy, you know, kind of barely taller than me, much smaller waist than me, not my type. And all of my friends and family were, you know, they just kept laughing the more we spent time together. They're like, you like him? I was like, no, I don't. We're just friends. We're just friends, you know? And then one day I think I was supposed to go to this party with this guy that I kind of saw on and off or something, and I didn't want to tell Paul. And he's like, "Oh, I didn't know you were still talking to him." I said, "Oh, I didn't really want to tell you. I don't know. I guess I'm." And he's like, "Are we in a relationship?" And he was on a work trip at Disney, and we had been texting the whole time. And so then he came home, and I picked him up from the airport, and we got takeout, and that night we made out like teenagers. And and then I called his cousin who introduced us, and I said, I might have made out with Paul last night. But you know, we watched a lot of our friends struggle in relationships. We saw marriages break up. We went to weddings together and then watched the marriages break up, like in our time together. And we just kept saying, that's not going to be us. Like we were friends first. And so I think part of my grief too, CJ, was like thinking, I'm never, ever going to find that again. I'm never going to find someone who just loved me unconditionally. All my faults, all of my quirks or whatever. And he was quirky too. And it drove me nuts about a lot of little things, but the big things, we were so solid. And there was such a deep level of respect for each other. And we had the same values, our parenting style, you know, everything was so on point. So that was a real big fear for me. I thought, I'm never going to find anybody. And I don't want to go through trying to find somebody, you know?
It's hard.
Yeah.
It just didn't even want to. I wanted someone to just appear. I didn't want to be alone the rest of my life either. I thought I'm too young to be alone, but that was really scary for me. I thought, I got this big house and 2 kids.
Does it still scare you?
No, it doesn't. I feel like I feel like I know he wants me to be with someone. And I know that it sounds so corny, but I know he's on this journey with me. Like,
Yeah.
I think that people that come into my life and new relationships, I kind of tell myself, like, what would Paul think, you know? I'm seeing somebody now. It's still fairly new. It's been a few months, but this is the first person that I have felt could be, you know, is special to me, because my standards were so high, and I used to
Mm-hmm.
joke. I joked with my boyfriend now, and I said at the beginning, I got a lot of boxes to check, so I hope you can check them. If you can't, you're out of here. You know, I mean, I would joke about it, but I meant it because it's different when you're older.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to put up with the crap you would have put up with in your 20s dating. Um, and I have my kids to think about. And
Yeah, that deeply resonates with me. I've been thinking about that too. Like I was with my wife since we were 18 years old. So we
yeah,
were 16, 17 years we were together, or whatever it was.
yeah,
And it's the same thing where I'm just like, man, we had a love that was so deep. I mean, so deep. And in my mind, like I struggle, like I have dated, to varying degrees of success.
hmm
And each person that I was with, you know, was very lovely, and I learned a lot of things.
You were successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, meaning that I'm not with anybody now.
I think you were successful in the sense that but you learned a lot of things, is right.
I learned so much, but like the thing that haunts me, like as I sit in this right now, is what is the expectation that we can have going forward? Like, can you truly, like, and I keep going in and out of this, but it's like, can you truly believe, or is it possible to actually have something deep? Now, not the same, because each two people create something new,
yeah, right.
but is it possible to have something deep and amazing? Right. Cause it's like, I do want to have that again. Like the next person could potentially be with me longer than I was with my wife, just if I end up living to 80 years old. So
Right.
like, I want to believe that it's possible to have a really deep, amazing, beautiful friendship and love and, you know, marriage or whatever romantic relationship again. But then part of me is like, well, maybe I already had that and I was only lucky once. So I'm just destined to be alone and just to fucking deal with it for the rest of my life. I go back and forth to the extremes.
I had those feelings too. When I first started dating, doing like online dating, I would unhide my profile, hide my profile. I would,
Yeah.
you know, I got so, it was like oversharing. You just get so sick of telling your
Mm-hmm.
story. And plus my unique situation, I'm a widowed stay-home mom. So the first question a guy is going to have is, where do you get your money? Like, what, you're looking for a sugar daddy, or you?
Oh,
And
Right.
I'm not going to disclose my finances to
Right.
everybody that I message with, you know, um, but to your point, like, one of those boxes that I need to be checked is that Paul is always going to be part of my life, a really important part of my life. His pictures are going to continue to be all over.
Mm-hmm.
We're still going to celebrate his birthday. We are, you know, he is the father of my children, and I I need someone who's going to embrace that lovingly, not tolerate it, but embrace it
yeah.
and know that I am who I am because
Mm-hmm.
of Paul and because of what I had with him.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I'm not looking to replace him. I think it just took me a while to feel like I could make room in my heart for someone.
Yeah. How do the kids feel about, or do they know you're dating, and how do they feel about that?
They do. They do. They knew that I was going on dates and meeting people, but they hadn't met anyone until him. And they love him. They really love
That's
him.
awesome.
He's a dad too. He has two older kids in high school, and he's a wonderful father, and he's just a really good fit for us. And and he doesn't, he loves hearing about Paul. You know, he smiles when I tell stories about Paul. I said, is it weird that there's pictures of him? And he says, no, it's not a threat to me. There's no, you know, this is why you are who you are. And,
Yeah.
you know, it's scary because I felt it was harder for me to open up my heart and let somebody in.
Did you specifically do work for that? Or did you just, by nature of processing and therapy and living, realize, oh, I think I'm ready?
That's a good question. You know, I kind of knew I was ready. It was almost 2 years before I started online dating. Also, part of it was the pandemic. I mean, kind of made things tricky. But I think like I don't know. I'm not really sure if it was like a switch. Somebody encouraged me to try it. It was another widowed friend, and said, I think you should try it. And if you don't like it, you just hide your profile. You know, you just stop.
Yeah.
So it was nerve-wracking, though. It was really, really nerve-wracking, especially for a girl. You just hear all these horror stories and everything. So I'd tell my mom or my sister, okay, I'm going to meet someone. We're going to this place and we're meeting at this time and this is what I'm wearing. And I'll text you if you don't hear from me in an hour.
My dad's dating life post losing my mom was like support groups he went to. So like his online dating wasn't a thing in 2002 or like maybe just not as progressed, you know?
Yeah.
And so I in a way he didn't have the like the difficult of meeting someone that knew what he went through because he was literally in a pool of women that lost their husbands. So everyone, I say everyone, there was like literally less than 3 probably that we had met, had all lost a spouse. But I remember when we met Delana that I had felt like it was something different. I don't know why. Like there was just like, and I don't even know that it's something I could really like explain besides like this feeling that I had as a kid that like, yeah, this one's going to stick.
For a while, I thought the other criteria I thought was I can't date someone who's never been married or doesn't have kids because I thought they can't relate to my loss or the dedication to my children, that they will always come first. And I know that's also cliche and everybody says that in their dating profiles, like I have 2 great kids and they always come first. Well, if they didn't, you're a jerk. So but I felt like I couldn't date somebody that didn't have one of those, didn't have to have both of those things. For a while, CJ, I thought I was destined to be with a widower. Like I thought that's the only way that I think the only way someone can really understand my crazy emotional shifts and my you know the internal struggles I have, and the only way they can understand is if they've lived it. Like I really thought that. I thought I am destined to be with someone else who has lost their spouse. But I really did think like I need to find a widower, and that's going to be the fit for me. But.
Yeah, that's what I thought initially, and then I go back and forth on it, and I have not dated a widower though. The few that I have not been, and I think one of the really difficult parts was my last relationship. She was an amazing woman, you know, but for whatever, things just didn't work out. But my kids got really attached. Her and I were together for quite some time. Yeah. And after we had broken up, seeing how devastating it was to my children and it triggering that loss to them again.
Yes.
Like really fucked me up, where I'm just like, I can't, like, how can I date and try to find my next person while also minimizing the damage and that stress on my kids,
and being a full-time dad. Like that's the other challenge with dating. Most
so
people,
hard.
If they have kids, they have every other weekend free, or they have kind of locked in days that they're always available. And I don't have that. And so Like there were some guys that were like, well, when are you going to find time to see me? And I'm like, and goodbye, like,
you do not understand.
Right. I have access to babysitters. Like my kids are almost at the age where I could leave them. I can leave them during the day. They don't like to be home alone at night, but,
yeah, same here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was so careful not to bring anyone around unless I knew it was special.
Yeah.
But still, this, what if this doesn't work out? My kids will be devastated.
There's always a risk.
Yes.
Yeah.
They will. And
always a risk.
But they love having them around. They love seeing me have help. They love seeing me happy. They said that when people say, what do you like about him? They say, look at how happy mom is. He's really helpful. He's really kind, and we have fun together. So I feel really good about it, but it's the first relationship that I have felt good. It is a journey, and it's not always a fun journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think it's really good though. Appreciate your insight on there. I think it's super helpful. It's always one of those things where I find it's the most uncomfortable thing for me to talk about. And I'm very public about nearly everything in my life. But dating is something like I'm even kind of a little bit nervous to be talking about this on the podcast just because it's been so personal to me.
Me too, CJ. I didn't plan on talking about it, honestly, at all. I mean, I haven't put anything on Facebook. The people that know me know he's met my entire family and my friends, and but there's something different about like posting a picture or and he's fine. He knows how I feel about him, and that's all that matters. But yeah, I do wonder. I do keep that very private as well. And I think part of doing this podcast, I thought there's lots of questions people might wonder, and maybe they'll get them by listening, because they don't want to ask. So.
Right. No, I appreciate you sharing and allowing me to open up a little bit about it. I don't know why it's something I'm so nervous to talk about, but it is one area that is really private. Even the process of dating, like there's very few people. I mean, Ashley is one of them. I usually message her when I need to talk to somebody or I feel frustrated.
Yeah.
But there's very, very few people I talk to about it at all. And I'm not quite sure why. I know there's like judgments or people try to make it better or they judge you for it, but they judge me for a lot of things. So it's not necessarily that. Yeah, I'm not sure. But I do appreciate you opening up.
I also think like our time is so precious, and in our situations with being solo parents, I don't even like to say single parent. I always say solo parent. And I think people don't realize how much work is involved, like lining up. I would always say, let's meet for coffee. Let's meet for lunch. Like I would try to do things when my kids were in school because I felt like they had to be worthy of a babysitter. I needed to really feel like this was going to go somewhere if I'm going to line up babysitters and be away from my children. But my family, everyone that cares about me wants to see me happy again, but I'm always thinking, and maybe you are too, like I said, would Paul like this guy? What would Paul think of this guy? And that has helped me with some of the failed scenarios where I'm just like, you know what? I don't think he would like you. I don't think he'd like you. So maybe amazing. It was kind of fun, but long term now. And that's the other thing. Like I'm not dating to date. I'm dating for a partner. I want a partner.
Yeah, same here.
I'm not looking for someone to just somebody to hang out on the weekends or bring to a wedding or whatever. Like I'm looking for a partner. I want someone that I could have fun doing nothing with. That's my goal.
And it's a thing that needs to be said too, but I don't think unless you've gone through it, you can understand it, but it is possible to love two people at the same time.
Yes.
I will always love my wife.
Yes.
Always.
Yep.
Without a doubt. And there is a capability to love somebody else.
Yes.
At the same time.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think it takes time to be able to open up for that, but like I said, it's almost like there's a part of my heart that is always going to be Paul, and it's not going anywhere, but I am open to sharing that space, and it took me a while to get there, but I feel good, and I feel proud of myself for sticking it out and not settling. Like, that's the other thing. You get so lonely that you think, yeah, they're pretty good except for that one thing, but maybe we'll get over that. And I'm like, it's just I don't do that either.
Yeah.
But
yeah. No, that's good to call out. Is there any one last thing that you would like to leave somebody who has gone through what you've gone through, or is caring for somebody who's gone through what you've gone through that you'd want to leave them with?
It's so hard to think of something to say that doesn't sound cliche, but my mantra, I kind of felt like, was really 1 minute at a time. People say 1 day at a time. For me, it really had to be one minute at a time. And I used to get mad when people say, you'll be happy again, you're going to do this, but you will.
Yeah.
You will be happy again. And like you said, you'll have space for your grief still, always. Like, I will always save space for that. But I do feel like I'm starting to learn how to be happy again. So it's a journey, 1 minute, just 1 minute at a time.
I like that. Okay. You're going to go first, Ashley?
Sure. Well, we know what your least favorite city in the U.S. is. So I thought I would ask you what your favorite city in the U.S. is.
In the U.S. Ooh.
Or you can do the world. You can do the world.
It's probably Galway in Ireland is my favorite.
Oh.
Okay. What is your go-to karaoke song?
Do you know I've never done karaoke?
Oh, it's so fun though.
I mean, I guess I've done it with my kids, and if that's the case, then it's Hakuna Matata from The Lion King.
Okay.
We do that a lot.
That's a classic. That's a classic.
What is your favorite junk food?
Ooh, ice cream all day.
Oh, yum.
I can't keep it in the house because I will eat it.
Okay. What is your most strongly held belief?
Ooh. Well, I mean, I guess like religious. I'm pretty devout Catholic, and I think something I believe really strongly is life after death. So I feel that there's heaven, and I feel like Paul's still with me, and that's a big thing for me, is that he's still watching us, and I hope that I'll see him again in some way, that I'm going to see him again. So
yeah.
Would you eat a day-old taquito from 7-Eleven?
Oh, God.
Would I?
You know those things that like roll? Yeah.
Yeah. Like the hot dogs that are on the rollers?
Yeah.
Would I eat it? Probably. I probably would. I really probably would. I could eat Mexican food every day. I love Mexican food. Day old or not. I probably could.
Yeah. I feel you.
Okay, last one. If given the chance to start your life over, would you take it?
No, I would not. I wouldn't. I think that all of the mistakes I've made have made me who I am, and all the good choices too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't start over. I sometimes wish that I knew different things when I was younger. I think we all do, but I feel like it has shaped me to who I am, and I'm proud of the person I am. I feel good about that.
That's awesome. What a great way to end too. Yeah, appreciate you coming on the show. Thank you for opening up and allowing me to open up a little bit too. So it was great. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Day After. You can find this podcast and more at our website at www.thedayafter.com. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you take a moment to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast.